Welcome to Brain Bandwidth episode 1. So, in this episode, first off, it's the first one, so it's going to be a bit different. You're going to see the set change, the chair are going to move a bit. We didn't do multiple take of what we talk about, we just changed the set midway through it because we're learning and we want to give you a good experience listening. The main subject that we're going to cover are going to be around what we call brain bandwidth. We're going to speak about our definition of it, what it means to us, how it relates to different aspects of life, how it relates, to the mind, the spirit, the body, and all those topics that for us are important and we want to share about through our experience, through our knowledge, and through what we've learned.
Welcome to Brain Bandwidth episode 1. As Jordan mentioned, we're kind of going to be messing around with the format here. The goal is to really promote some discussion around what we're calling brain bandwidth, which we'll talk about more as the conversation gets started. It's really just going to be a conversation between the two of us. It's going to allow us to get our thoughts out and maybe expand our thought process on a few things. So the format will be changing as we go through, but we'll kind of figure it out as we go. My name's Terry. I'm a registered massage therapist. I've been a strength and conditioning coach for 12 years. I'm a martial arts instructor. Very interested in spirituality and the brain and all these different things that make up being a human. And I hope to have some really interesting conversations.
Yeah, one of the goals actually, and the reason why we start this is we often have great ideas, but often we have them when we're in a situation or a state where we can't take notes or we can't remember them after the fact because we're doing something else. And one of the big goals of our discussion is going to be to actually see what comes out and to learn from that and to grow and potentially help you pick some pearl of wisdom out of that and grow yourself.
Yeah, I find myself, I consume a lot of information. I have a very, curious mind. And I'll read a lot of books and then consume a lot of videos and have discussions. But it's not until I have those discussions after potentially, being subjected to some new information or idea. Having that conversation allows me to, partially cement the information in my head as well as get it out and expand the idea. I don't think until you really discuss it, does it become something that your brain can grasp really well, or you can further that discussion now that you're further the information, further the education, further the learning once you're getting your mind used to grabbing onto the ideas, verbalizing them, and hearing them spoken out loud, and then bouncing them off somebody else who maybe have a different perspective or interpretation of something. I think it's really what we're going for here personally, and I think some of our conversations that we're going to have are going to spark some cool ideas, which we'll expand upon, and we'll just see where things go.
Yeah, and I'm Jordan. I don't have any official title. I'm a mind, body, spirit specialist, which means I help people find themselves, listen to their inner being. We'll define the term spirituality because it doesn't mean the same thing in all contexts and for everybody. Which is an important note to do from the get-go, I feel. And I have a decade of experience learning about the world, about people, about spirituality, about meditation, about different practices. I went to RMT school, which I haven't finished yet. That's where I met Terry. This is where we bonded and discovered that we have, similar mind and different aspects of our life. And this is why we're here today and starting this. So yeah, let's get going. When I said brain bandwidth, so I know what it means to me. What does it mean to you?
Well, that's a good question. For me, it's more on the it's more in the realm of how much focus, attention, energy. Mentally, I can put into things each day, or someone can put into something each day, and then how certain things might affect that. Whether it's the aging brain, somebody who's had a head injury, stress, things like that, right? How many things you have on your plate. So the idea of you look at the amount of things the average person has to do in a day, and the things we put our focus on, and where we might be. Because if you look at the idea of brain bandwidth being that our mental energy and attention is finite. Right.
Yep.
Obviously, the more you spend on tasks that aren't integral to your day or to the direction you want to go in life, the more you're sabotaging your goals or your relationships or whatever.
Your life.
In your
Not
life.
being
Yeah.
able to achieve what you want because
Yeah.
you don't have the resources internally to do it.
Yeah, so for myself, I know I struggled in stressful times and trying to push through, and stress accumulates, and it may just be really subversive and subtle, and then it really adds up, and I just find I can't. I've gone through periods of my time where I just can handle very little. You know, I'm really quick to anger, I'm really quick to frustration, I'm really quick to emotional, mental overload, and I find myself retreating into myself, and I think it's a way for my to kind of reset to avoid subjecting myself to any more stimuli or stress or being or
That's how you cope.
yeah, that's how I cope.
That's how you cope. As simple as that.
Yeah, so looking at it in that realm, in that way, in that perspective, you know, reducing the amount of things I have to think about and being only focusing on one thing at a time and learning these different things and how the brain can become overwhelmed and bogged down. Like the things I mentioned before, that's kind of where my brain sits with it. I know it has potential other meanings, or you can look at it a different way. That's where
we're starting.
Yeah, that's where we're
we
starting.
need to start somewhere
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very cool. I like the concept that you said about, finite resources. Because when I speak about that, whether in the context of doing activities, because one of the things I do is help people with stress. And the way I understand and I explain stress to people is basically your brain has a limited amount of resources. And once you reach the cap and you push past that, everything is slowly going to lose focus, to go less fast.
Yes.
Everything is going to crumble down a bit. Maybe not the one task that you are focusing on at that specific moment, because you're putting all your resources onto that, but everything else goes onto the back burner. I've been through a car accident that damaged my brain, so I had to deal with that, and through studies and my own experience, that's how I've correlated the two and understood really how the brain itself does a lot more than we don't know about, like the back processes that we can't really tap into or that we're not aware, and those are the ones that are basically bugging us down. It's not picking up the pen and writing the letter, it's everything that would be around that story, and that is in the back of your mind that you can't necessarily access and process. And for me, knowing how to manage your bandwidth, which is different for everybody, and knowing how to deal with it in a manner to let the brain do its job, because in most contexts I find the brain is doing its work, you're just not giving it the opportunity to do it because you're overwhelmed, and that's nobody's fault. Situation, stories, life, what happened. But really getting into that concept and being able to help with that, I've seen a lot of people be able to move forward, just by their own will, because they're giving a chance to their brain to actually do its job. So that's what it is for me.
I like that. Yeah, and like maybe to help people understand, if people aren't grasping the concept 100% or how it's maybe relatable in their day-to-day life. I think the brain, like you said, it likes to it seems to like to focus on one or a few things at once, right? And maybe once it gets better at a certain thing, it can handle maybe multitasking or can handle more things at once. Like take it for example, maybe when you're driving your car, you're listening to music, and you're fine, but when you're first driving and you're new to it, and you're very, very attentive, you're very, very alert. If once you're seasoned, you find it's funny. People might laugh at this, but it's true. You're driving your car, your music on, but when it's time to park or you're lost, you're trying to find the building you're looking for. You turn the music down, like all of a sudden that's gonna help you see better, or whatever, right? But it's because you're trying to focus on exactly what you're doing. Or maybe you look at somebody who's ever played an instrument or plays guitar. And that's all you can do is just play the guitar. It's really difficult. You look at somebody singing and playing guitar, like how in the hell is this person singing and playing guitar? Well, this becomes so good at the one thing, at playing guitar. The bandwidth needed to do that. It becomes much less, and now they can add in something else, right? And everybody knows when they're stressed, they tend to be more irritable. They tend to be able to handle as much. I can't deal with this right now. That type of thing. I think there's a lot of ways we can bring up topics in the conversation to help people deal with that specific area.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big part. I think this conversation.
Yeah. So something I've noticed, and I think that's one of I will call it a key, because I find there is many keys to how the mind works that are relatively general, that they apply to most people out there. And it's the fact that when you stress actually is a tool that allows you to know what you should be focusing on often. You're going to have one thing that you're going to be obsessing about that you may not control the obsessing about, but that's your brain telling you need to resolve that piece for the rest to come through.
That's the most pertinent emergency that
Yeah.
the brain's focusing on. Yeah.
And we don't really learn to recognize that. We just say, it's just how I feel, it's how my mind is working, and I'm just going to keep doing. But our brain is very more aware than we are, most of the time. And it's giving us a lot of information, through the body, through what we feel, through, our daily lives, our activities, what we ingest with our eyes, with the sound, everything. And even though we get a clear message in our head, this, you need to focus on this is what's stressing me. Very often we keep just on that focus of this is what's stressing me. And we don't release the bandwidth and say, okay, I'm aware this is my issue. I know that's that I need to work on, but I don't know how to work on it. Or, you don't know how to pass the step from having the issue in front of you being like, oh, that's what that means, to, okay, now I need bandwidth instead of telling me what the focus should be to actually work on it. And I find a lot of people are stuck at, I know what the issue is, that's the issue, that's the issue, that's the issue. And they keep focusing on that nonstop instead of taking, okay, now that I have that knowledge, that I can internalize that knowledge, I can take a step back and be like, okay, let's process it. And it's not just about processing with the brain, it's also processing it with the body. Often I talk about full body experience. The brain alone is not the entirety of you. Some experiences are very emotional, very physical. So the brain can't be the only one doing everything at all time. You need to have time for, the entirety of you.
And that's interesting. Do you find people in your experience, they have this thing that's coming to the forefront? This is the main stress or the thing they're focusing on. And maybe they don't know how to deal with it, but they also seem to avoid it, try to avoid it, avoid doing the thing, right? They want to ignore it, to push it into the background, just not focus on it, because dealing with it could mean multiple things, right? Could mean having to confront something they don't want to confront, or they just don't want to have to deal with the hassle of doing it.
So there is two aspects to that. There is the part that sometimes you have to do something you really don't want to do and you're fearful of it, and that's why you're not doing it. And then there is the part where you're just overwhelmed. Yeah. So it's not that your fear is not, I will say, quote unquote, genuine versus the danger that exists. It's not a situation where, for example, I need to talk to my boss, but I may lose my job. So I'm genuinely afraid that the discussion could go sideways on me and that will impact my entire life. In a situation like that, yes, you can be overwhelmed, but there's also an aspect of fear to manage.
So fear versus being overwhelmed is an aspect.
Yeah. And then there is just being overwhelmed, where it's a simple situation, but because the state your brain are in and you're in and the lack of bandwidth, you're unable to do the task.
It seems like a giant mountain to climb.
Yes. Yeah. For me, that's an important difference between the two. And a topic I speak a lot about is, and I try to teach people to recognize it because it's different for everyone. It's try to avoid to make fear decision making. You make a decision based on fear. Because it's only fairly recent, like 200 years, that our environment is not able to actively kill us at any time. Like, I've said that before, you've heard me said that before, but basically 200 years ago you're walking in the street, which is most likely just a dirt road, and something comes and eats you, and that's the end of you, and that's all there is to it. So the brain has still not adapted to the fact that this is not happening anymore for most of us around the globe, that we live in cities where, we're relatively safe. And our brain is still, when it sees danger, even if it's not life-threatening in our civilization, it's still reacting the same way it used to be. And that reaction makes you do and make decisions on a fear base, which is not rational, which is not necessarily good. It used to be very, very useful when you need to survive, when you need to run faster and decide, am I going to jump on this or climb the tree?
Yeah. So if a bear's chasing you, it's back in the day, it's good to have that fear response. Yeah. But if you have something that arises that's not a bear chasing you, it's a bill that needs to be paid. It's not necessarily helpful or conducive to have that fear response, right?
Yeah. And that's I feel that's a big topic because we don't learn to, I don't remember learning to deal with that kind of thing at school at all, or having that being even a subject. At school we spoke about mental health a bit when it comes to burnout and stuff like that, and especially when you go to different school and you have to be good with yourself and take care of yourself. But that's never was a subject. Sometimes you're gonna make decisions, and where do they come from? Why are you making them? Do you even understand why you're making them? I'm drinking water. Why? I'm thirsty. That's simple. Right now, it's not a fear-based decision. That decision, I'm afraid I'm gonna die of thirst. And suddenly I am not drinking because I'm thirsty, I'm drinking because I'm afraid. That changes how the brain functions, and that changes the amount of bandwidth you're giving to a simple task. Actually, I have an example for that. Let's say you're going to a meeting. Medium important meeting. If you miss it, nothing bad would necessarily happen. You would have to apologize. You're on your way there, you have a flat tire, and you manage to get on the curb and you're safe. And now you need to change your tire. But what's going to happen to you? You're going to worry about the meeting, you're going to worry about what people are going to think, you're going to worry, let's say you can't contact the people because you don't have service, you're going to worry about, oh my god, I'm destroying everything, and now you need to change the tire, and you're going to be in panic mode trying to change the tire, and that's going to take you, let's say it takes you an hour. Other scenario, you arrive home, you get out of the car, it's the evening, there is no rush, nothing to do. Oh, you have a flat tire, you just noticed it. You're going to go inside, drop your stuff, go to the car. Let's say you don't have any special tool other than what comes with the car. Well, you're going to open the car and start changing the tire. Maybe it's going to take you an hour and 15 minutes, because you're relaxed. But you're basically expending the same amount of time, which is our primary resources, to do the same task. It's just at the end of one, you're going to be, okay, that's done. That was not a pleasant experience. And on the other one, you're going to be stressed out of your mind the entire way.
Yeah, same situation, different circumstances.
Yeah. And it's not true for some situation, again, life-threatening or life-altering. Of course, you're going to have fear, stress, but in a lot of cases, it doesn't need to go to the level where it goes. In a lot of cases, yeah, on a 0 to 10, 10 being like, oh my god, something tragic is happening to me, and 0, everything's fine. Yeah, having a flat and having a meeting, 3, 4, not 7, 8, 9, 10. But that's just my opinion on that. If you can live your life with a lot less stress on those things, that means also when something really bad happens, you can really recruit those resources to actually do something about it.
So you're talking about when something happens, whether it's big or small, or whatever, understanding how your brain might work in the scenario and understanding the situation, and rationalizing it, or giving it the appropriate amount of stress, or giving it the appropriate amount of response that it probably deserves, right?
Yeah.
There's no need to, even in that particular situation, there's no bear chasing. It is a stressful situation, but if you just focus on the task at hand and get it done,
Most of us, unlike you, are not warriors anymore.
Yeah. Well, warriors.
Oh, yeah.
Warrior spirit.
Yeah, well, you used to fight a bit, so you know about that mindset. So I want to ask you a question about that. So you used to be an MMA trainer, fighter. What kind of mindset do you have when you do this kind of activity, and how do you think it relates to the sense maybe of danger and excitement, and how do you feel the brain cope with those kind of activities that are more or less stressful depending when you go into it?
That's a good question, and I think it's different. I think there's a few different types of people that, like, I was never a full-blown MMA fighter. I dabbled in it, and I've been training and coaching a long time, so I've been around a lot of men and women that do this stuff, do combat sports. And there's a couple of, everyone's different. There's a couple of different personalities that kind of get drawn to it, and then how they interact with it. I was drawn to combat sports, especially MMA, because of the totality of it, and if that's maybe not the best term, but to use. But well, first of all, the idea of doing it was terrifying. That was one of the draws to it, because it's like you want to test yourself. You want to be able to give yourself that trial,
the challenge,
right?
Can I do it?
Yeah. So
am I worthy?
Exactly, right? It's like I don't know. You want to challenge yourself. It was very, very attractive to me in that sense. But for me, it was more of a testing myself. Can I do that? A competitive thing with myself. Because you look at the one the fear aspect of it and overcoming that. Then there's the physical aspect of it, which is where you have to be in really good shape. You have to be able, you're overcoming yourself in there. You're also overcoming another human being trying to incapacitate you in some fashion. No one's coming to save you, save the referee in there or your coach chucking in the towel. You have to get in and get out on your own accord. But there are people that in my experience, that have coached that like they just want to experience they're in there for the fight. A lot of people will do something for the outcome.
Yeah.
They will train for the outcome. They're training and they're getting in there because they want to win. They want to accomplish it. And then there are people that I've trained and coached that they want that experience, that time in the ring or in the cage or in the octagon. But when you're actually in there doing it, it's a very strange feeling. It's a ride of adrenaline like no other. At least it was for me, right? It's just adrenaline kicks in, and there's the first. I remember one of my coaches saying to me, he's like, as soon as the first punch gets thrown, it's like autopilot. And it's true. You're able to think a lot in there, but it's this really crazy, overwhelming, but fluid flow state where you can kind of experience everything in some very slow motion-y, in the moment type of thing. But it is extremely stressful. Like, it's remarkably stressful, but you're only able to focus on the immediate task at hand. Because it's like kind of going back to what you said. Like it's that's what's taking up the most bandwidth. That's the most.
I need to survive. Yeah, I will use all my resources to survive this.
This person's trying to punch me, or I'm trying to punch them, or do whatever it is, right? But it's tremendously stressful, the entire process. Like knowing you're going to have a fight, training for the fight, getting to the building, warming up, knowing your fight's coming up next, getting called out, walking through the arena, walking out, getting to the cage, door closing, and then getting the bell ringing, and then boom.
So in that process, is there a point where you feel your brain and your head and your headspace and all of that is in more or less in sync with yourself, or is it just anticipation of what's going to happen?
That's another really good question. So for me, this is how it was. It was like before you actually get out there, it's this you kind of experience everything. At least I did. It was like total fear, total bewilderment in my decision-making process to be in this situation in the first place. Yeah. Total confidence, and then acceptance. And when the acceptance of the situation, it kind of kicked in towards the end. You call it, and you just kind of. There was definitely for me personally, and I know this is true for a lot of the people I've coached. There's a very large sense of calm, but it's like there's that everything is just below the surface. Yeah. The anxiety and the adrenaline and the fear and the confidence
but you're
and
in
the
control.
Anticipation. It's just bubbling below the surface, but you're in control. And then you just go out and you just do the job. You do it.
Is it something that you teach? Or is it something that has to come just from within?
I don't personally think that you can teach it. You can talk about it, but I think the way you instill it in somebody is preparing them, having them go through all those trials, because the whole process to get into to competing in something like that, and it's the same is true for any sport, I'm sure. But I think combat sports have a bit of a different angle to everything because it's so physical, it's so visceral, it's so all these different things. So I think by preparing the person, by teaching them stuff, the years they spent training or months, whatever it is, hopefully years they spent training, all the hard practice sessions, overcoming the adversity a million times in practice, losing so many times, and questioning themselves and overcoming things and learning, and then going through all those processes, like getting the fight, training hard, doing the dieting, doing all the hard training. Doing all those different things, I think that prepares them, that instills those things in them. The process of preparing and practicing does that, I think. But I think you have to be also, it's not for everybody, I think you have to be wired a certain way to want to even do it in the first place.
Yeah, well, for me it was different. Other sports, do you think this experience and how you've been able to get in touch with yourself and understand how you go to a calm place, we'll say even in stressful moment, has helped you in other things in life?
Absolutely. I think it helped transfers into everything. I think that having the experiences in martial art or sport or whatever where you are actually really calling upon yourself in a really big way and definitely prepares you for other stressors in life, for sure. And allows you to kind of put things in perspective and take on more and Yeah, and I think it can help you good and bad ways, right? Because not everything needs to be a fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah, yeah,
We've been there
yeah.
in class.
Yeah.
We shouldn't fight the teacher. It's just brutal, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be fine. It's just a little bit of, math and chemistry, and it's all good.
But that's a good example. Like, and to put in context, we met in school. We were in a condensed, intensive program for massage therapy, and we put ourselves in a situation where the information and the expectations and the everything was intense. And use your bandwidth up real quick. But you have to keep going. There's no choice.
Yeah.
Right? You have to keep coming every day. You have to keep putting the work. Just tests, exams, always something coming at you. And
the knowledge. Not only that,
Yeah.
but do you have to master the knowledge they're giving you, but at the same time, you have to keep ingesting
new knowledge.
new knowledge.
Yeah, it's a very poor way to go about educating yourself. But yeah, but you can tell everyone gets short-tempered. People are getting sick really easy. They're having emotional breakdowns. Little things are setting you up. For me, like I said, I didn't have much of a social life outside of school, and I just kind of worked and locked myself in my room every weekend and evening because I couldn't take anything else. I couldn't be social.
That's what we used to do. When we used to study, it's basically, what should we do? Study.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you can't take on any relationship. You can't. Like, at the time I was single, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't have had a new relationship. I don't know how people with significant others carried those relationships forward.
So that for me is interesting because when I'm gonna switch gear a tiny bit.
Okay.
So when you have something that takes so much of your resources, then there is something else I think that comes in play, and that's a bit more on the spiritual side. Some people, I feel, see how you feel about it, some people will be able to draw a lot from being in a relationship. Some people tend to not necessarily draw as much, but there is another context where when they're with someone, they're trying to grow, which takes bandwidth.
Yes.
Not everybody is necessarily, and not all relationship is necessarily just easy peasy. I go home, you say hello, you're happy to see the person, and it's fine if you don't have meaningful discussion, for a long period of time. For me, this is, part of what I would call a spiritual need, and that changes through life. When you're younger, you don't have the same need, in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s. And depending what you want, you're able to recognize that at this stage, I'm overwhelmed by school because everything is coming at me, and wow, and I was there, and everybody was overwhelmed, and some people are like, no, I'm gonna find someone because this is what I need to level me out.
Yeah.
And some people are like, absolutely not, because this is gonna draw resources from me.
Yes, and I think that's a really good.
There was two groups,
point to bring up.
Some people who are looking inward for their strengths, and some people who are looking outward, which obviously the formula worked for both parties, depending who they were. So to me, that's very interesting to see that, finding someone that can bring you something, no matter what it is, if it matches your own, mathematical equation of your spirit, your body, your mind, that brings you up. And for some people, growing with someone, it's not that it doesn't bring them up, but that takes bandwidth too.
That's really interesting because I just kind of blanket statemented my original thought, which is like, I don't know how people do it. And you're right, because that's a really good point to bring up, because there are people that we went to school with that are in those situations that almost need a relationship, and like I said, you're growing and they're having that supportive element, and it's really working for them, and they get by easier because of that. I think it would also depend on your partner at the time. But for me, I wasn't one of those people. Like, even in my especially right now, I'm very, it's going to get more intangible, more spiritual, but I'm very much capable of being alone and being on my own, right? I'm very much capable of that in like a real way. And when I was in school, there's just no way what could be in a relationship or do that type of stuff, because I'm the other person you described, where it's like, I need, the relationship is good for me, but I need to have the bandwidth to make it grow. To
nourish it in a way that takes some of your bandwidth.
Yeah.
It's a positive thing, but it takes some of your bandwidth.
If I don't have it, then one, I can't give the person what they need usually, and it's not giving. I can't connect to the relationship, and my girlfriend now, my partner now, she'll definitely attest to that. Like, I'm very protective I give her a lot, and we grow. It's the most fruitful relationship I've ever been in. But I'm also very protective of my energy and my boundaries, and I need a lot of enclosed time and space. Right, I give her lots, but I also need that, and when I'm ready for to connect and when to do things, that then it can grow. Yeah, I'm very much.
There is a time for you alone, and there is a time for you with your partner.
Exactly.
Which is two different things, two different concepts.
I mean, that idea that you bring up with that is really important because it ties into this whole brain bandwidth.
Yeah. The entire concept is to manage your resources, no matter what it is. If someone is in a relationship and all it does it brings them up and they're not expending resources, that's very good. If everybody is happy, who are we to question someone that's happy? That's not what we're here for. And there are so many different things and so many different people, so many different type of relationship. The end goal, for me, the end goal is to grow and to be happy. And often as you're growing, you have growing pain, so it's a bit hard to be happy. But once you get past the pain, you get a bit of happy. And once you plateau, you're like, I want to grow a bit again, and you go back and you keep going up. So, but to go up, you need to have resources allocated for that. No matter where you are.
I think in the context of the overall discussion of brain bandwidth, where we're going with this, is one of the main things is like understanding, telling people how their daily life and the things they focus on and what they do and how many responsibilities they have and what's going on in their life has a big effect on their ability, their brain bandwidth. But also understanding what type of person you are and what you need in your relationships, what you need from your job or what you need from your hobbies or what you need from the people you know or whatever, as far as how you interact with people, whether you're more of a connect when I can type of person, I guess I almost describe it as more introverted type of person, or if you can disconnect and grow just by being in a relationship, if that makes any sense. Those are two important concepts to talk about.
There is, so to add something, and that's where I shine, on the spiritual side, there is also a lot of people that put a lot of work trying to grow, but that don't necessarily find their way in the world. Because when you talk about spirituality, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm really talking about inner self and being. We live in a very complex world that has a lot to offer, and it's a bit like going to a buffet where not everything is going to be good, but you have no idea until you test it. And that's a challenge, because every time you test something, you're like, ooh, okay, that wasn't, and you keep going, at some point you could get sick. And when you get sick, when you give up, that's not good. That's when you stop growing, that's when you stop doing what should bring you joy in life. And when I see people searching, answers on how should I be, how come this is happening, why am I like that, and they're looking just at the immediate things about their life, because that's what their brain is doing, just looking at the immediate thing, and they're unable to, pan out a bit. Okay, so maybe it's not something about that, maybe it's something about, something that happened a month ago, 3 months ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that your brain just has put on the back burner, and that you haven't taken the time to be with yourself and to grow through it and to understand. We don't realize how much events in our life stay with us, throughout our life, and that everything adds to our personality, to who we are, to our experiences, to who we are becoming. But at the same time, it's taking a bit of resources. So as we grow, we need to learn to manage that and learn how to parse things, And that's something, when you talk about the continuity and how people manage things, I feel that's something that it's not being taught often,
So I think what you're saying too, I think this is exactly what you're saying, is because you see that I've come across it a lot in people talking to me about their problems, or in my own self, or relationships I've had, where people have a sense of unhappiness or a sense of anxiety in their life, and they will not really sure where it's stemming from. So they might blame something that it isn't. They might blame their relationship or their significant other. They might blame their job or whatever.
The money they make or don't make.
Or something like that.
The car they have or don't have.
Exactly. If they take a step back and really, are able to kind of look in that direction, look at everything in a different light, like maybe you said something that happened, maybe carrying with you. because we're holistic beings, in my opinion, I think it's almost irrefutable when you look at it in different.
Yeah.
Like, everything affects you.
Yeah.
Right? So how you're eating, how you're treating yourself.
How others are treating you. It's not just internally, it's also the outside things that can happen to you and will happen to you throughout your life, the good and the bad.
You're going to carry this up. What you're consuming, intellectually, physically, all these different things. So it's not always maybe the most apparent thing, like you might most surface thing, like your relationship or whatever. I think a lot of people will look to their relationships to be the main problem they have, or when it's not actually that thing, right? Something else going on.
Yeah.
And when you start talking to someone and say, hey, like, take stock of how much you worry about something stupid, how much you absorb social media, how much you spend your time thinking or consuming stuff. If you think about how much, your focus and your willpower and your ability to interact is finite during the day, especially, and then throughout the week.
Yeah.
If you think about how much time you spend on things that aren't integral to what you need to get done, and what's not integral to having a good fun day, or what you might
a good experience and a full experience.
Yeah, and you'll start to see when you reduce those things or take them out, and also give your brain a bit of a break via meditation or something you're just doing mindfully. Like, just turn the music off when you're driving home and just drive, or when you're in the shower, just shower and don't think about different things.
So this weekend I was in New York State in Albany, and on the drive back I had period where I had the music on. Then when I had clear roads, when I wasn't in the mountain pass, when I wasn't straight, I stopped the music and I just relax.
Yeah.
Just be. When you're on the mountain pass, because I didn't take all the interstate everywhere, I've gotten lost a tiny bit. I took an exit. I'm like, this is a one-way street. I should not be on a one-way street going across that line. This is not right. But other than that, no. For me, driving is really relaxing, especially on the highway when there is. When you're in traffic, like, that's a different story. But when you're going somewhere and there is no traffic and it's peaceful and the car is working well, champion.
I think what I was saying too is that when people take this time to just be mindful throughout the day, and maybe actually do the act of meditating for 5 minutes.
Take the extra step.
And take the extra stuff out, like reduce your social media, reduce the amount of stuff that you consume. It's this kind of junk food. You'll see how much more. You'll see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You'll see how your brain bandwidth, your ability to handle more things throughout the day goes up, like more important things throughout the day.
You don't realize, and that's something that's interesting. You don't realize how much you're consuming different elements while you're doing it.
Yeah. Because
it's a simple mechanism. Actually, and I was saying something, it's someone that basically tests phones. He tests smartphones. He was just testing the brand new Galaxy Fold, which is a super expensive phone. But one of the points he made, just the fact that he had to open his phone made him stop just taking it out of his pocket and looking at it when he was in the elevator, or stuff like that. Because that extra step of having to open the phone, potentially use both hands, was too much. So the barrier for the brain is really not far, and at that point the brain is like, it's not worth it. And for him it was very interesting. I can see that when all you have to do is look, because now you don't even have to press a button. The entire point of this is to minimize the bandwidth to get to the screen.
Yeah.
As soon as you add a tiny barrier, people are like, nope, it's not worth it. I will just ride the elevator in peace and be with myself.
Well, even I got off Facebook for like 3 weeks, and now what I've done is I've completely reduced the amount of time I spend on it. But during that 3 weeks, just the act, like, because you can like disable your account, right?
Yeah,
you're not deleting it, it's just disable. All you're really doing is logging out.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is log back in and get in. But just that extra step of having to go through it, type in everything and go confirm, are you sure, blah, 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 was enough to keep me, and my reasoning for not wanting to do it, those two things were enough to keep me off.
Yeah, you had the intent.
Off Facebook for that amount of time. But because it wasn't just open click, boom, that extra step was enough
to keep you away.
To keep me away from it.
Yeah, and those things are designed to really take our attention.
Yeah.
To grab us and keep us there. That's their job. That's what they're designed for.
Well,
You can't blame them because we don't pay for the service, so
No,
they
they want
make
you to
money
consume.
on the consumption.
Yeah, they want
That's
you
our
to consume,
business
they want you to
model.
interact, they want you to see the ads,
Yeah.
they want you to do stuff, they want to hand out your information to other places, right?
Once in my life, I've bought something from an ad that I've seen on Facebook, and I was very disappointed because the picture did not match the end product that I received. I tried something. I tried to buy a shirt, a dress shirt from China.
Don't do it.
That was many years ago too. So many years ago, I'm like, I'm gonna try one. It's super cheap. I know why it's super cheap. I could see through the shirt and it's black.
And now you can't get those shirt ads off your Facebook because they know.
Yeah.
This guy's gonna
The
buy
only
one.
thing I ever bought, but it's interesting because that's something that I was looking for.
My relationship, like, I got off all social media for the most part, and I don't even really watch television, but I watch YouTube. And I was talking about all I do is scrolling on Facebook and scrolling. It says a bunch of waste of time. Then I'm on YouTube. My girlfriend's like, "Isn't this the same thing?" You're scrolling through videos, your daily videos. It's just math. Like, no, yes, and your attention span. This video's too long. Next, you're just constantly consuming one thing after the other.
Yeah.
Quick little sound bites, quick little video clips. Boom, boom, boom. It's entertaining your brain. And I'm like, yeah, this is the exact same thing.
Yeah, and that's why, to me, there is a balance between just listening to listen or actually active listening, where you're actually ingesting the information. Because I have so many people sending me so many interesting video and podcasts, but how to keep all that information is relatively hard because of that. Because a lot of people are going to listen to a podcast while they're going to work, but maybe instead of doing, let's say they have half an hour worth of commute to do. Instead of doing half an hour podcast, they should do 15 minutes of podcast and 15 minutes of just relaxing and chilling. Because they're already engaging their brain so much and the day hasn't started. And especially if it's something interesting. If it's just a bunch of jokes and stuff like that, it's different. But if it's something interesting, that even if you're into it, you don't realize it, but that's burning off a lot of calories. Your brain is just consuming everything. So whether you're talking about physical resources, whether you're talking about mental resources, spiritual, you're just into it, doing that thing, and then you go to work and you're like, wow, I have to come down from that high of doing something that I enjoy and listening to something that I enjoy to potentially something that is not as enjoyable as that. Even if you love your job, it may not be as profound as a podcast on a topic that is dear to you.
Yeah.
And the differential makes it super hard on the brain because the bandwidth is not a fixed amount. I find it's flexible. If you go from sad to happy, wow, a lot of bandwidth. If you go from happy to sad, whoa, a lot of bandwidth, but not in the same way at all. It's not equivalent to one another. That depends on your own experience. The example I give is that you take two people, you take someone that has never hurt in their life, ever, and they break their nails, that's going to be the end of the world for them. Because they're going to suffer to the maximum of their capacity to suffer. Because that's the only suffering they've ever experienced.
It's relevant to them.
It's their experience. You cannot deny them their experience. Anytime you deny someone their experience, it's not good, in my experience. On the spiritual side, it's really, really bad. And if you had someone that, struggled through life and they break their nail, you'll be like, okay, and keep going. But that's different experience, and you can't deny your experience. And a lot of people, they end up denying their experience throughout their own day, throughout everything they do, And I find that really sad.
Yeah, it is.
Because if you don't, I talk about the brain bandwidth, and for me, accepting your experience, is part of that. It's part of nurturing that bandwidth. And yes, it's good to tell yourself, oh, it's going to work out and I'm going to be happy and I am happy. But if you're not happy, at some point you have to say, okay, I am not happy and I'm okay with the fact that I'm not happy and I'm going to deal with it. But you have to accept it. You have to accept your experience. You cannot deny your experience.
That's a really good point you bring up. It's like, I think you're like, when something happens, you react a certain way to it. It's really important to, scrutinize your own reactions and be like, okay, am I overreacting? Is this the appropriate amount? Do I need to be this upset? And I think, especially for me, I can speak for myself. I think it's something that even maybe men might do more than women, is that you tend to, talk down to yourself and tell yourself to get over it and just deal with it, type of thing, right?
Be a man.
Be a man, which I think is important. But at the same time, it's also okay. I'm having this reaction. I feel like this way about it. It's not helpful just to always just brush past that portion of it, right? If you're having that reaction, why are you having that reaction? Maybe this is a big deal to you. It's a big deal to you for a lot of reasons. But this goes back to, if we want to get into like stoicism, it goes back to that. Like you don't want to completely ignore your feelings around it, but at the same time, you can't live in those negative feelings for a really long time, because they're not going to solve the issue, or you're going to dwell. And when you dwell, that's where you're going to have a problem.
That's when you start to spiral, and that's where...
So there's a balance between acknowledging, accepting, dwelling, and maybe
moving forward at the same time. Yeah, you can't stop for everything that happens in life. Obviously, I have people that come to me that seek, help and trying to find their being, their spirituality and who they are and stuff like that. And I'm like, you already know, you're just not applying it. Like, I'm not going to teach you who you are. You know that better than anyone. All I can do is give you a perspective on, how to reflect on yourself. And if you're willing to do the work, then the inner you is going to come out and give you some answers. I'm not here telling you, oh, well, that's what you should do. That's not the point of, what I bring to people. I'm here to bring them tools so they can use, their body, their brain, their bandwidth to actually figure out what it is that they want deep inside and what they need to deal with and cope with and move forward. Because a lot of people, go to see different doctors for different things, which is very important, but they don't necessarily have the tools to do the introspection of their own being,
And that's something that I think I talk about a lot. And so I've delved into a couple of different things recently, like in the realm of finances and like long-term goals and stuff like that. So I've been in the fitness industry for a long time. I also work with people in massage therapy. So people have injuries or limitations or things they're trying to overcome. And so I've been watching this particular gentleman on YouTube who has a finance podcast / YouTube channel, whatever. And he said something the other day that I've been saying for years, but I relate it to fitness goals, and like where you want to go in life. Because you were talking about, giving people the tools to like self-reflect and find out who they potentially really are and what they really want, right? And I think when you are able to actually do that, like really try to spend some time with yourself and figure out your quote unquote your why. I'm doing air quotes, but your actual why. So your why can be a lot of things, but I think it should be what you want out of life, and that can be hard to come up with. But we all know maybe it doesn't have to be every step along the way. We all know somewhere where we want to be what we want. We want to feel better. We want to get rid of this pain. We want to fix our finances. We want to get a better job. We want to finish school. We want to eventually own a home. We want to have a family. We want to accomplish this career goal or this aspiration. And when you figure out your why and you really cement your feelings around it and why you want that thing, because what that does is it gives you a baseline for, a reminder of what you really want in life, especially if you tie emotion to it. And everything else,
your purpose, of goals, and
that to me clears up a ton of bandwidth, because now
you have a path.
You have a path, and anything that may not be conducive to that path goes away. Right, not to the point where you're forsaking a relationship.
It's not binary. It's not 0-1.
No, but it gives you a clear motivation / thing to be moving towards, and then you're going to be more likely to do the little things, win the little battles that get you to where you want to go, and that clears up bandwidth. That gives you positive feedback. It just makes things easier. Like if you know why you're not going to eat that bag of cookies because you have a good reason why with a good why with your health. If you know why you're not eating out every day because you have a financial goal to get out of debt so you can own a home one day, if you know why you're taking care of yourself, or you're doing this job to this point for this reason because you want to have a family or whatever, it becomes much easier. And it clears up space because you know where you're headed and who you are and what you want. To some degree.
And that doesn't mean you can't work with the reality and constraint of life.
Exactly.
You know, if your goal is something specific, you're like, I will never be able to get there because my life is X, Y, Z, and this has happened, and I can change some element. That doesn't mean you can't work towards it and have part of that to help you support you as a, you know, as a whole, as a being, as a person in society. Because when you don't know, the odds of you going towards it very slim. Very slim. If you know, and even if it's not achievable in this lifetime, at least you know that, okay, I know I cannot get there because whatever reason is, you know, but what can I do that could help me either get there or something that I would enjoy on the way there? Because there is also a concept, but that I think we're going to leave for another time. It's the difference between doing something for the goal and just enjoying the goal and being miserable while you're going there, and enjoying the journey and not caring that much about the end result. That's to me, that's a topic in itself.
That is a topic in itself, because it's true. Like I don't. It's some people, like, it goes back to what I said about combat sports, right? Like, you're just going through the grind to get the goal, versus some people really enjoy the entire process, entire journey. I think it's easier to enjoy the journey when you really are connected to that goal.
Yeah.
Right. Because we do enough as humans, in my opinion. At least I do it. I don't like to speak broadly, but I think it's safe to say a lot. And we do this as we look forward to things, and we look past the present and the moment, and we just want to get to the thing. So, you know, you miss everything. You miss the journey, which, even though you're maybe in a position you're not the happiest, and you think when you get to this end goal you're going to be happier.
But the goal moves on you all the time, because life moves all the time.
You can still be happy in the process, right? No matter what situation it is, you can find some type of joy in the process, in the mayhem or the chaos or the grind or whatever it is. There's all sorts of great little things in there. There's no reason to put off being happy until you get to, you know, X, Y, Z, whatever it is.
So obviously I'm not the only one to teach that, but being present in the moment, you know, and to live your experiences when they happen is actually super important. Because when it happens, that's also, you know, even the bad stuff, that's when your brain can really process it, because it's focusing on that, it's putting the rest on the side. And yeah, it may not be enough, you know, sometimes you lose people in your family. I did, and it took me time to process it. So being there at the time, you know, of the action, maybe not enough. But being there in the moment allows you to have that experience. So you're not like, oh, I'm going to deny myself that. I'm not going to cry about losing someone, or I'm not going to cry about losing a job, or I'm not going to be happy about gaining a job because I can't afford it. You know, it goes in both directions. It's not about the bad stuff, it's also about the good stuff. Some people don't let themselves enjoy the good stuff because, well, oh, I have this and I have that, and I'm working for this and that. So yes, I can go on the boat, but I can't really enjoy it because I have to think about work. What's the point?
Well, I struggled with that. I think I talked about this with school, right? It was like I couldn't, if I passed an exam that I was really struggling to pass, or worried about failing, or passed a subject or a course, I didn't let myself celebrate it because I had to get right back, and I was only focusing on the next thing I had to do. And when I graduated from college, it was like, well, I'm not going to enjoy that. I'm not going to rest and enjoy this because I got to worry about doing my licensing exam. Pass the licensing exams, well, I can't. Now I got to focus on actually getting out there and working and
building
getting work.
The company and getting your name out there.
And then it moves. The goalpost keeps moving. Moving. Like, I need to go. I need this amount of money. I need to get this many things going. I need to accomplish this. And now I got to, you know, get that down payment for whatever it is.
I need that many dogs.
Yeah, that many dogs. I need 50 dogs in a dog farm. It becomes this thing where you got to stop and just kind of enjoy every little thing and the process along the way, right?
Yeah.
But again, I think that really harkens back to the benefit of
being present and having the bandwidth to process it.
And I think that's helped by having really. I don't think a lot. It sounds funny, but I don't think a lot of people really sit and think what themselves, what they want to do.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's hard to do that in this day and age because we have so many things pulling us in a million different directions, right? I used to criticize the average person. I don't know how people don't think really deeply about these things and try to figure it out. It's because they can't, a lot of people can't. They have too many things. They got a relationship, a job, a mortgage, kids.
Facebook going all the time.
Facebook. There, something happens. They just don't. They just want to. So when the time comes, they're exhausted. They just want to sit in front of the TV and or go do something.
Yeah.
You know, that's not as emotionally or intellectually dampening. Like they.
Yeah.
You know,
So there is something I want to clear because I'm pretty sure I understand you, but I want to make sure when you speak about thinking, it's not just about the head. It's about mindful thinking.
Yes.
It's about
Yes.
being present,
Yeah.
in the moment, in your body, in your heart, in your soul, in your head. It's the compounded you. It's every aspect. Because a lot of people would say, "Oh, I'm thinking about me all the time and what I want all the time." Yeah, but that's just the head.
Yeah.
If you're just in your head, you're not getting the answer. Your head is great for many things. When you have to do math, when you have to figure problems. How is my accounting working? Where are my keys? A lot of good stuff come from the head. But when it comes to the internal work, the head is a tiny piece of the processor. Your heart will give you, and your body will give you a lot of insight. If you're cringing at a thought, well, that's a sign that maybe that's not something positive you're doing.
And that's a whole nother conversation, right?
Yeah.
That bridging of understanding those different aspects, right? The brain, the mind, the body.
Yep.
Those different connections, what they can be. Because I'm a very much, it's funny. I'm very much a rational thinker, a rational productive thinker, trying to do everything in that type of way and look at problems in that way. But I'm also the opposite of that.
Yeah,
The other end
I
of
was
that.
gonna say you're very rational, but you're also self-aware of your
Yeah.
body, of what I'm gonna call your mind, not just your brain, but your mind, and your spirit, your soul, your heart. So you're very rational, but you encompass everything when you make a decision.
Yes,
you know.
absolutely.
So that's where I think the difference is that you've done work throughout your life, to know yourself, to understand yourself, to have mechanism to cope, to let your brain process things, to be able to go through intense moment in your life and come out and be like, okay, now I need to rest, but I'm okay. Not everybody has that. Some people are still just brain, and the body doesn't matter, and the heart doesn't matter, and whatever we want to call the spirituality of your soul doesn't matter. It's, oh, I'm here for a purpose. No, I'm here to my 9 to 5, and that's all there is to it, and I'm gonna get this, and that makes sense in my. You do more than just think about it. That's the point I want to make sure
and
it's clear.
that's what I was going to reiterate too. Is I do that, but I'm also like you just said.
Yeah.
Right? I have this.
It's not two things.
No,
it's one thing.
It's one thing. And I think I like the way of talking about it in two things, but it really is one thing. But being kind of aware of that.
Here in this discussion, it's one thing, because what we're talking about is being whole. At the end of the day.
And I think that, like you mentioned earlier, when you said spirituality, you were really quick to jump in and kind of add on to that, saying, "Well, I'm not talking about this, I'm not talking about that." Because spirituality can be I think you could give it an actual concrete definition. But also, it's more subjective. Like,
Yes.
You're not necessarily talking about religion. Like for me, spirituality is more just like
meditation.
It's a meditation.
Self-awareness.
It's self-awareness. It's an understanding of myself, and as a grander connectedness to things.
Yes.
Right. That's how I would kind of look at it for me personally. For some people, it might be something else, but what could be something you call God, consciousness, something. Right. But
Source,
different things to
infinite
different
light.
Yeah.
It
could be different things to different people. So. It's not one of those. I think we're going in the realm of one of those things where it can mean anything, so it means nothing. I think that this particular scenario, it means
is
something.
Well, it goes back to you cannot deny your experience.
Yeah.
Spirituality is an experience, and it's different for most people. You may have groups that share, similar, let's say, core belief about it, but I'm not a big fan of belief necessarily. But it's an experience, and a lot of people deny their experience. So they put that on the back burner of their mind, and that takes some bandwidth of the brain, being like, okay, can we process that at some point? Yes, no, okay, well, I'm gonna keep it here. I'm not gonna trash it. Keep dealing with the rest of your life. I'll keep it there, and I'll add to it as you don't process it. As simple as that.
Yeah.
I know some people, and people say, oh, they don't have that need because they're always happy and and they're carefree. And I look at them and I'm like, yes, they are, but what you don't realize is that they've already done the work, in a sense. You don't think of them as highly spiritual or highly seized because they don't necessarily believe in this or that, but they have a methodology that works for them, that they apply actively to actually be able to process the world and cope with it and move forward, and that's how they're able to deal with the bad and be happy in the good. You know, and when you ask them what does spiritually mean for you, they're like, nothing. And that's still their experience. For them, the world means nothing, but they're still doing their inner work. And at the end of the day, that's what matters.
You're just not as aware, maybe aware of it, or how we...
Call it what... No, but call it what you want. We just like that word. That's all.
Just like, I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Just like that word, and we're using it, and that's how we're...